Because tonight I want to look at what the fuck is the military with doing so much money. Why do they got such a big bag and none of us got it?
Let me show you how much the United States spends on its military.
Jesus
Over here
Christ.
you've got Russia.
Holy shit, how the fuck is the internet not mad at the government? Why are they mad at each other? Why can they not agree on this? 916 billion? Do you even know? Oh my lord, you getting fucking rinsed.
China, India, and other big military powers. And yet, if you combine them all into one, the US still spends more. More than the next 10 countries combined. But I'm interested in what happens inside.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be spending that much money. I definitely agree that we should be spending a good amount of money on the fucking government and the fucking military. But what the fuck are we doing for the people? What are we doing for our regular people that are starving? We're fucking peasants over here for you, you stupid motherfucker.
This circle. Like, what are we spending our money on?
These bars going crazy, bro.
In here, we'll see everything that the military spends their money on, from salaries for soldiers to elementary schools for their children. We'll see the $21 million helicopters and these missiles that cost $1.6 million each. And
oh my god, 1.6 million, that's a Lambo. They dropping a Lambo on somebody's head.
we'll see how much the Pentagon spends on the development of new weapons, new technology, like these ship-based laser weapons. And of course, the most expensive of all, the F-35 fighter jet, that will end up costing the taxpayers $2 trillion. We even made a little model of this guy. And like the real thing,
2 trillion?
the
Ain't
model
no way.
is continually breaking down. Oh, okay, here we go.
Yeah, the door thing is really hard to put in.
Yeah. Of all the money our Congress budgets to run our government on any given year, almost half of it goes to the military. Here you've got education, and there's diplomacy, and health science, energy, environment. We've been deep in the spreadsheets and the data. Luckily, all of this stuff is pretty public and open to scrutiny, with the goal of visualizing all of this, trying to understand where the money goes, to understand why the US spends so much more than any other country on its military. And most important of all, to try to answer the question of whether all of this money actually makes us safer.
Almost all of our witnesses before the Armed Services Committee tell us that we are in the most dangerous global threat security since generations.
This is the
I
Pentagon's
mean, I
budget
get it,
for
bro.
2023.
America is America for the reason that they're America. Because they balling out at the military. Get the Glocky out. Get the Glizzy out. Let them know what's good. Fucking fuck it. Fuck the Glock. I got a rocket launcher. Like, you know?
It's how they planned to spend money that year. It turns out that how much they spend on defense is pretty complicated and depends a lot on who you ask. So go to the sources, you can see how we got all these numbers and what decisions we made. The total number we got was $853 billion. That's more than the entire economy of Switzerland. Let's take a brain break because I want to talk about another kind of budget, an annoying part of my personal budget, which is subscriber
Oh my god!
the military of the United States. It's a lot, so let's start to break it down. Close to half of all of this money goes to the vague-sounding category of operations and maintenance. This is $352 billion that we spend just on O&M.
Billy, you have any idea how much that... Bro, that could solve all homelessness problems, period. That could solve all of homelessness, period. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. That can solve every homeless crisis in America.
That's like larger than the entire economy of Portugal. Like just to create the report, to get all these numbers assembled in one place, costs the DoD $269,000.
Give me like half of that, I got you. Give me that. Give me half of that, I got you. What are you talking about? What are you talking
But
about?
also, credit to the Pentagon and the US government for giving us all of this very clear data that we can shine a light on and scrutinize. A lot of countries aren't this transparent. So anyway, operations and maintenance. This is like all the costs required to keep the Department of Defense, one of the largest organizations in the world, running. It's a lot of not very sexy stuff like transportation, fuel, maintenance of equipment, administrative costs, training expenses. It includes $39 billion just for the doctors and health services for active duty personnel.
Billion? Billion?
And it also covers the stuff that you don't really think about when you think of military spending, like environmental cleanup in areas that the military has left unexploded bombs or spilled chemicals in the local environment. It also includes disaster relief and humanitarian money, which is something the military does as well. Here's nearly $1 billion dedicated to anti-drug activities. And here's $10 million for security at international sporting competitions. This huge category also captures the cost to run every one of the US's approximately 1,250 military bases, including the approximately 800 bases that are not in the United States, that are in other countries, which, by the way, are quite expensive to run because the US military has basically created a slice of America in these other countries. You've got Pizza Hut and McDonald's and Subway and grocery stores with products flown from the United States to make military personnel serving abroad feel like they're right at home. Okay, but let's just pause right here on this map because this is a good moment to recognize that the United States military is not a normal army. It is not a normal military. Most militaries are tasked with protecting their country, securing their borders. But the US military is so much more than that. It sprawls out throughout the entire globe.
But see, that's the thing, bro. Like, that's what Rome did. They spread too thin across the world, bro. They need to focus on America, bro. Like, low-key, they need to focus inward, bro. They need to focus on their own people, bro. They're spreading too thin. Like, that's the problem. They're spreading too thin.
US control over every corner of the planet, allowing the US to be the global policeman, where it enforces the rules and norms of the system that it created and from which it benefits immensely. So one quick answer to this big question of why the United States spends so much more on its military is actually pretty simple, because this is the cost of being the global hegemon, the one who gets to enforce the rules and maintain control over the globe. Okay, but let's keep going on our budget. That's the point of the video. The next big category here is people, military personnel, $172 billion. Pay, benefits, retirement, healthcare for the over 3.4 million soldiers, reservists, and civilian military personnel. By some estimates, the Department of Defense is the largest employer in the world, though it depends on how you count it. The Pentagon also spends a lot of money on recruiting new talent, like the $28 million that they spent on hiring experts who work in artificial intelligence. Next, the military spends $140 billion on research and development. And a reminder, I know that these numbers are abstract and billion doesn't mean anything to anyone, but like $140 billion, that's the entire economy of Morocco that the Pentagon spends on R&D, thinking about the future, with the goal of maintaining technological superiority on the
What the fuck is we doing over here, bro?
It's a huge part of what the Pentagon does. Now, a lot of this stuff is classified, but we do know that the Pentagon is spending money on stuff like AI, using AI to analyze drone footage to improve their targeting capabilities, building autonomous submarines, or these insane military lasers that they use at sea to attack other ships. For years, they've also been trying to develop this exoskeleton that will supercharge the abilities.
Yeah, they're trying to turn into Fallout, bro. They're trying to make this Fallout, bro. They're trying to turn into that Fallout like New Vegas type shit.
Their soldiers, allow them to carry more weight over long periods of time. Although this technology, while potentially promising, isn't really there yet, but it might be soon. Now, the Pentagon pours a lot of investment into these technologies for the battlefield. But sometimes this tech actually turns into stuff that we use every day, like GPS, drones, voice recognition, the computer mouse, and the internet itself are all technologies that were first developed, at least in part, by the US military.
The World Wide Web, or the web, was created for and by the United States Department of Defense.
Let's quickly look at this smallest of the categories, still $19 billion, but compared to all these other ones, it's pretty small. This is construction, building new facilities, both at home and abroad. Like this little project, $85 million for jet fuel tanks in Japan, supporting force projection in the Pacific.
What are these numbers? How many... Bro, they got more commas in their fucking thing than I do in my goddamn essays.
Or it looks like they're proposing $75 million to spend on a new operations support facility in Southern California. And finally, we get to the part of the budget that you probably think about when you think of military spending. Procurement.
Big word. That's
$167 billion, the entire economy of Ethiopia, to purchase all of this.
What the fuck are these numbers are we talking about? What the fuck are we talking about?
I've always known the military stuff is expensive, but now I really know it. Let's look at some of this stuff. This jet costs around $142 million. The US bought 77 of them in 2023 and is asking for another $14 billion to buy 83 more this year. And they're pretty spendy to fly too. Look at these 4 cruise missiles parachuting out of a plane. Each one of these missiles costs $1.6 million. Oh, and the American taxpayer bought 600 of them last year. This vehicle costs $372,000. It's used to move troops around the battlefield. Last year we bought about 3,700 of them, and this year we want another 3,100. $2.8 billion buying 24 of these F-15s. For the Navy, this is going to cost $7.3 billion. $1.2 billion for these 56 Black Hawk helicopters for the Army. $8.2 billion for 3 destroyer-class ships. Probably doing the same thing with those submarines. Fleet replenishment, American-class amphibious assault is going to be about $2.2 billion. I mean, it's a lot. And these are
I feel like, don't they get fucking technologically behind doing all this shit? Like that's the thing, bro. Like, I feel like they're buying technology that's gonna be old in a couple of years. Like, bro, like they're buying shit that's like, of course, like cutting edge now, but in like 5 years, I'll be like low key, like behind.
Few tiny little samples. I'm just scratching the surface.
Oh my god.
And in fact,
dude,
this diagram that looks so complex and granular is also highly simplified and condensed. Each one of these categories actually contains billions of tiny little things inside of it. This organization is much bigger than we could ever fathom. And in fact, it's much bigger than the Pentagon itself can even fathom.
The Pentagon has, up until this point in 2024, never successfully passed an audit. American taxpayers want to know how our tax dollars are getting spent.
How is
And
that even possible?
That
Like,
the
what the
department
fuck?
that's getting such a
How
huge
is that even
chunk of the
possible?
federal budget can't account for all of the dollars it's getting is definitely a problem.
For 6 years in a row now, the Pentagon has failed to pass an independent audit. They've brought in a bunch of accountants and said, tell us where all of our stuff is and what we spend our money on, and the accountants say, no, we can't do it. 61% of their physical assets are missing. They don't know where they are, which means they're probably investing a lot of money in stuff that they already.
If I can't do taxes for 1 year, I'm behind on my bills. They taking shit out of my paycheck. Like, if I don't do taxes for 1 year, they're knocking at my door. But these motherfuckers can spend whatever, and 61% of it is unaccounted for. I'm smacking a hoe.
already have and they just don't know it. But my bigger question here is why? The United States pulled out of Afghanistan a few years ago, the war in Iraq is over, but spending continues to go up. And spending went down for like a split second, but look, it's going up again.
Yeah, they got like 3 other wars to
first
fucking
off,
fight.
remember what we talked about earlier. The US is not a normal country with a regular military. The US is the global hegemon, who uses its military to assert control and order over every corner of the globe. But
Bro, y'all seen the pictures with fucking North Korea, Russia, and China in... Ooh, they locked in right now, bro.
There's
It's
another
getting
reason why this
crazy out
budget
in
is
these
so high.
streets. I don't know how
And
this
this reason is much more infuriating to me. What our little graph here doesn't reveal is that most of this money is going to private corporations, who get 466 billion of these dollars, about 54%. And once again, the US government tells us exactly which corporations they give all this money to. We pulled the last 19 years worth of data on these private contractors. At the top of this list, you start to see the
Lockheed
same
Martin.
names over and over. Raytheon, General Dynamics, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin. These are the names at the top of these lists, year after year. There used to be a lot of different defense contractors, but over the last 3 decades, they got gobbled up by these big 5. Transitioning, from the words of the Pentagon, from 51 to 5 aerospace and defense prime contractors. As a result, the DoD is increasingly reliant on a small number of contractors for critical defense capabilities, i.e. we've got kind of a monopoly issue on our hands. These 5 contractors own the space, and the Pentagon can't really go elsewhere if they need an F-35. There's only one shop in town that makes it. For this reason, the prices can get pretty out of control. Like the Pentagon used to pay $25,000 for this Stinger missile, and now they pay nearly $500,000 for the same missile.
How does that even... What? Math is not mathing right now, chat. How is the mathing right... Chat, I don't know what the fuck we doing nowadays, bro.
The price went up more than 16 times in just a couple decades. A little more than inflation.
there's a history of defense
Holy
contractors
fuck, they
overcharging the US
rinsing
government. They
us
can
right
overcharge.
now,
If they're the
bruh. They
only
rinsing
company
the
producing
fuck out
a
of
certain
us,
widget,
bruh.
then there's no competition, and that's one of the problems with monopoly. Is if there's not competition, it's easy to overcharge the buyer. In addition, the Inspector General of the Department of Defense has found routinely that there's overcharging through corruption and waste and fraud, and there have been lawsuits. For example, KBR is a contractor that's been used overseas, and they were found to overcharge in dining halls by 30 to 40%.
It's also why a Pentagon inspector realized
30 to 40%, bro. They making big bucks. They making big bucks.
that the Pentagon was paying Boeing, yes, that Boeing, $3,357 for one ball bearing, a small little piece that the Pentagon could actually get for $15 in their own warehouse. $15.
I would have to go in there and smack a bitch. Holy sh! We're getting fucking finessed.
When the Pentagon does get around to investigating these contractors, they sometimes find that they're taking huge profits, like 40 to 50% profit margins, giving them hundreds and millions of dollars above what they should be making in any kind of typical business environment.
This is
and what do they do
bullshit.
with all these profits? Well,
We're getting
they
finessed.
pay their executives very well. But this list also tells us what they do. This is a list of how much money these defense contractors spend to influence our lawmakers into spending more money on the military so that these companies can make more money. You can see right here that Lockheed Martin is at the top of the list. So far this year, in this election cycle, Lockheed Martin has spent $2.7 million, split pretty evenly between Democrats and Republicans. This is a number that will continue to go up as we get closer to the election, and it is money spent to cozy up to lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, contributing to their campaigns, bringing them out
Bro,
to show them how
doing
great
like a couple milli here and there is nothing to them. They're making couple billies in profit. Couple millies here and there is nothing to them, bro. Like, we're spending billies on that ass,
their weapons
bro.
are, doing whatever they can to make sure that the money keeps flowing to their companies. These companies also benefit from the infamous revolving door. The revolving door is not a literal door, it's a metaphorical door between the Pentagon and the defense corporations, which allows top military leaders like Jim Mattis to serve in the military for decades, retire as a general, and then join the board of General Dynamics, a defense contractor, only to pass through the proverbial door to become the Secretary of Defense under Trump, after which he passes through the door again to go back onto the board of General Dynamics, bringing with him all of his insider knowledge and government contacts.
That's so fucked
No,
up,
this
bro.
is not-
They're fucking us regular people like we're fucking used condoms, bro. That's what they doing. They rubber fucking us.
Not just Jim Mattis, this is a very normal thing that people do here in DC.
That's
One analysis
crazy,
found
bro.
that in
That's
2022,
crazy,
top defense
bro.
companies hired 672 employees directly out of the Pentagon to work as lobbyists, board members, and executives.
Crazy, bro.
Go check my
Crazy.
sources if you want to read more about this. I mean, yes, the revolving door is metaphorical, but it's also pretty physical and literal.
Crazy.
I drive on this freeway all the time, and I'm always struck at how close all of this is. Over here is the Pentagon, and over here are all the defense contractors in an area of town literally called Pentagon City.
If there's someone working in government who is deciding on contracts and they have a conversation with someone who's going to receive that contract, the person in the firm can promise a good high-paying job after that government official is out of government. And so the government official then has an incentive to give a generous contract to the contractor because they know they're getting this kind of quid pro quo. They're going to get a high-paying job after they leave government.
And to add insult to injury here, some of the lawmakers who approve the Pentagon's budget own stocks in the defense contracting companies. Like, the lawmakers get richer if we spend more money on defense. No. Why do we do this? Like, this is like...
Bro, we're literally getting rent so bad, bro. We just don't even know. We're getting whipped so bad. You're literally getting whooped, eyes closed, butt booty naked, bro.
Classic, basic, simple, like, no, conflict of interest. We should not do this. This is not a thing we should do. But actually owning stocks in these companies is not the biggest way, I think, that our lawmakers are influenced by defense contractors. There's something more subtle going on here that I think is actually the best explanation, and it has to do with this excellent map.
Why is
This map
nothing...
is-
Wait, hold on. Why is nothing up here? What's going on up here? Why is nothing... Why is this whole empty area? Oh, holy shit. I need to know what this map...
This map was assembled by an Air Force veteran and analyst named Christian Sorensen. This map makes it easy to see how contractors intentionally allocate their operations all across the country, spanning dozens of states and political districts. Building all of this stuff means jobs, which people like. So lawmakers are incentivized to keep these contractors making stuff in their district, to provide jobs for their people so they can keep getting elected. It's honestly brilliant. It's smart. This is political engineering. You can see it very clearly with lawmakers like Roger Wicker, a senator from the state of Mississippi. Senator Wicker is a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on Armed Services, which plays a huge role in giving taxpayer money to the Pentagon, which in turn feeds the bottom line of the contractors. Wicker loves the military. You often hear him advocating that we should spend...
Like, bro, listen, I love the military too, but bro, the problem is that our regular people are struggling. The whole thing about living paycheck to paycheck is so normal to America nowadays, bro. It's problematic. You're giving a lot of money to these contractors, but they're not providing it back to the average American. Average American is not working at Lockheed Martin. They're not working at Raytheon, bro. They're working at a fucking Walmart. They're working at fucking Starbucks. They're fucking doing regular 9-to-5 shit. You're talking about like the top 5 to 10%. You're making them richer. You're starting a divide in America that cannot be fixed anymore, bro. This is crazy.
Way more on the military.
We need, in the United States, to spend more on defense. It's a necessity.
His suit is probably, bro, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, bro.
Wicker loves the military. You often hear him
his suit is
that we
probably
spend way
worth
more on the
more
military.
than the average American salary.
In the United States.
Like, just that suit right there, I promise you, bro, that suit right there is probably worth more than most average American salaries. It's probably a $30,000 suit. I promise you, it's like a 10K suit right there, bro. Average salary in America is like 30K nowadays, bro. Like 30 to 40K, really. Crazy work, bro.
To spend more on defense. It's a necessity.
He writes op-eds in the New York Times calling for more shipbuilding. And when you look at his state, you realize, of course he does. The largest employer in Mississippi is this naval shipyard run by a defense contractor named Huntington Ingalls, which means more jobs and economic stimulus for Wicker's people in his state, which means a better likelihood of being reelected. Now, these defense contractors know that Senator Wicker is an important part of their bottom line, so they contribute huge amounts of money to his campaign to make sure he gets reelected. It's this virtuous cycle between Senator Wicker and the defense contractors that results in us spending more money on things that maybe we don't need to. Senator Wicker's job is to represent the American people. He sits on a committee that is supposed to be looking at our national security as a whole. And yet, thanks to the strategy of these for-profit defense contractors, this lawmaker has way too much incentive to advocate for more military spending, which is exactly what he does. My issue here is less with Senator Wicker or Congressman Mike Rogers, who has the same thing, sits on a committee, gives a bunch of money to the Pentagon, has a state where billions of dollars of defense contract money comes into, takes tons of money from defense contractors for his campaign, gets reelected, continues to approve more money for the Pentagon, etc. My issue is with the system that allows this to happen, that allows the money from our military spending to be used to influence our lawmakers into more military spending. It's so clearly a conflict of interest. And it is this system that is
us regular people getting rinsed right now, bro. Us regular people are fighting tooth and nail for this shit, bro.
Where there is very little political pushback to the endless ratcheting up of our military budget.
You know, no congressperson wants to be the person who loses jobs in their district. Nobody wants to be the one known as shutting down a plant and people becoming unemployed. And so Lockheed can say, we have to have increased funding of this contract or you will lose jobs. And so that idea that jobs are essential, the Department of Defense spending is essential, really gives the contractor political power.
Let me make one point clear, which is that this isn't all corporate lobbying that contributes to the US spending so much on the military. That would be too lazy of an explanation. We live in a world where there's a well-documented paradox that explains that strong militaries are actually the key ingredient to avoiding conflict, in deterring an enemy from attacking, keeping a balance between big militaries so that no one attacks. Maybe someday we won't need militaries even close to the size that we have today. But it appears that in today's world, we still do need big militaries with credible threats to avoid the age-old human curse of war. And yet, on the other side of that paradox is the fact that if you grow your military, you force your adversary to do the same, to keep pace with you. The US and the Soviet Union did that for decades during the Cold War, each ratcheting up their military until suddenly both sides had over 10,000 nuclear warheads. That is madness. It diverges from the rational, and yet it's the logical...
Yo, that's my favorite plane right there. Should look like a quesadilla, bro.
...results when we decide that the main solution to beating our rivals is to just make more weapons.
As the US spends more, Russia, China, other countries are spending more. If you look at the discretionary budget, about 50% of that goes to the Department of Defense.
Bullshit!
And only 1 or 2% of that goes to the Department of State. You can see where our priorities are. A show of force is really the first foreign policy of the US.
For this one, the explanation is easy. Diplomacy is hard and complicated and long. It doesn't make leaders feel as powerful and secure as having a big military does. And no one's getting rich off diplomacy. And yet diplomacy, international law and organizations, treaties, cooperation, that is how we solve our differences. That is how we have learned to live peacefully on this globe. The fact is, no one ever achieved sustainable peace by spending more on their military. And finally, we have to remember that while we pour so much into our military, that is money that can't be spent elsewhere.
If we increase defense spending, that necessarily has to mean something else decreases. Bigger piece of the pie for defense, smaller piece of the pie for other things. And those other things might be healthcare, education, climate change, and so on. And then we can also think of this notion of security. What actually makes us secure? Does spending more on defense make us more secure? If you look at other sources of security, having good roads and bridges, having safe drinking water, these are all things that Americans need investment in to be safe, to be healthy. So we're economically secure. People have jobs that they can go to, funding for college. Those are all sources of security as well. So it's not just military security we need to think of when we think of the federal budget.
I deeply respect the men and women who work and serve the country in the military. But I think that our laws and norms around how much money we give to the military prevents us from assessing this situation clearly. The system we have incentivizes the wrong priorities. Priorities that have a lot more to do with profit margins of companies and the electability of lawmakers. All of this setting us on a path of infinite escalation that risks ending in disaster.
That's deep.
Hey, thanks for watching, everyone. If you haven't checked out Search Party, our other channel run by Sam Ellis, it is Geopolitics and Sports. It's a really great channel. You should go check it out. All of our music we make here in-house with our composer, Tom Fox. That is all published over on our music channel called Chromatic. It's also on Spotify, so head over there, link in the description. Subscribe.
Mr. Harris, I'll have to give you a round of applause with the documentaries, bro. Y'all go ahead and go subscribe to Johnny Harris because he does drop some bangers, bro. Look, he's dropped some crazy, crazy good fucking documentaries.